Today we're talking about identity, user authentication and permission inside your web and mobile application. Stay tuned. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for downloading the AWS Developers Podcast. We're available in all good podcast applications, Amazon Music, Apple, Deezer, Spotify, YouTube, you name it. As I used to say, if it is a good podcast application, there is a good chance that you can find the AWS Developers Podcast. Please subscribe, leave a little star, thumbs ups, tell us your feedback about future episodes as well. What are the subjects you want us to talk about AWS services or cloud technology in general. To talk about cloud technology today, I have not only one, but two guests. Rahul Sharma, your principal product manager in the Cognito team, and Kevin Shanley, your worldwide tech leader for identity. You're both focusing and working with identity-based products and especially Cognito. We are going to talk about new capabilities that we release around Cognito, but maybe to let everybody catch up with us. What is Cognito?
Absolutely. I'm very excited to be here on this episode, Sebastian. So let's break it down for our listeners. What really is Cognito? I would say the simplest way to think about Cognito is that it is an AWS service that helps our developers build secure, scalable, and a customized sign-up and sign-in experiences swiftly for their applications. And really the core value proposition for Cognito here is that what we consistently hear from developers is that building a robust authentication system is hard. Like imagine say building your entire user directory, user management, like securing the sign-up, sign-in experiences, protecting against malicious users signing in, integrations with various identity providers is often time consuming and requires substantial heavy lift to build from scratch. So this is where really Amazon Cognito comes in and shines because it helps address these challenges so that developers can focus on building the core business like logic experience for their application features rather than implementing an authentication system from scratch.
That's the typical things that AWS does. We identify the undifferentiated heavy lifting, like our CTO Werner Vogels used to say, the things that everybody has to do that brings zero added value or business value to an application, which is quite difficult to do. You mentioned it, Rahul, doing that right at scale. It's super touchy. It's not just a logging page or a sign-up page. It's also the flow for people having forgot their password. And then we have to deal with other requirements coming from business. We're going to talk about that a bit later, like, hey, I want a passkey authentication or email authentication with a link. I want this, I want that. And because it's user authentication, it's super touchy in terms of security. So implementing that yourself, it's not as easy as having a web page and a table in your MySQL database. You need to think a bit more about that. That's what I like with Cognito, because I'm developing a lot of web application, mostly for demo. And when I need to add user authentication, it's like one tick box or one selection in Amplify and one option, and voila, I don't have to think about it. There is all that backend that is there for me, but also the front end. That's how customers are using mostly Cognito to replace their authentication wall inside their business application.
Absolutely. So Cognito's primary use case is customer identity and access management. It's also used heavily by things like multi-tenant B2B access portals, and that can be used by companies like Wiz.io. They actually reduce their cost by 70% going over migrating to Cognito. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And certainly, the really neat thing that's come up with all this as well is what we've just recently launched.
And that we are going to talk about in details. What are the main... I like to have a balanced experience as well, so that customer knows when they can use the service and when maybe it's not for them. So what are the use cases where Cognito is probably not a good idea to start with?
So specifically, we do not market Cognito towards pure business or enterprise use cases. So in those use cases, there can be a lot of additional types of requirements that a workforce would require. Mm-hmm. Things like access requests, governance, provisioning, and if you think about a typical workforce use case, a new employee is onboarded into an HR system, and then, they're replicated or provisioned to an identity directory service. And so with all those flows, it really is a very different use case overall from the customer identity, where, if you think about typical consumer use cases, say Neiman Marcus or Nestle Purina, which are Cognito customers, you can self-register as a customer. You can just go up to a website, register yourself, maybe link your account if you have some sort of existing account within the companies you use as a customer, and then you're off to the races. And with this as well, there tends to be just a large scale difference, and workforce providers, you'll have typically a much smaller pool of employees, but with customer identity and access management solutions, you're in the millions and millions of users.
Yeah, so the sweet spot is for developers that are building application and that wants authentication for their user, their customer, from a few thousand to million, as you said. This is where Cognito might be useful for you. Cognito is also a way to access other AWS services. I was talking about that with someone yesterday, saying, hey, I have an authenticated user and now I need an access key, secret key to access S3 or DynamoDB. Can Cognito help me there too?
Absolutely. So you have actually a product called Cognito Identity Pools, which basically is one of the Cognito offerings that provides like temporary AWS credentials to users, allowing them access to like other AWS services directly. Like it supports authentication through like Cognito user pools, social identity providers, and even custom identity providers. And the way to think about this is like identity pools really enables more fine-grained access control to like AWS resources using like IAM roles. So
it's more than just user authentication inside your app. It's also your gateway to accessing or to allow access to other AWS services. So at the end of last year, tell me if I'm wrong, I think it was November, December last year, around reInvent or shortly before reInvent, we announced 4 new categories of capabilities for Cognito. I'm going to list them in one shot. So if you're listening to us, you know what to expect in the next 20, 30 minutes of this discussion. And then we are going to dive deep into each of them. The first one is the new getting started experience. I guess all developers are starting there in the console, getting started, create a new Cognito user pool. We'll explain what's new. There is a new manage logging, so a web-hosted GUI, web interface, web interface. There is also the possibility now to log in without a password, like with email or with a passkey. Passkey are very popular these days. You're going to explain us that. And then there is a new pricing tier, a new free tier. So it's important as well to understand how much I'm going to pay as a developer if I start to use Cognito. Let's start with the first one, the getting started experience. So what is the getting started experience when I go into the console?
Okay, so actually this is one of my favorite features overall, because I'm in the Cognito console all the time. And, when you look at a developer journey, it begins with that getting started experience. And it used to be that with Cognito, you had sort of a number of different questions. It was like 40 or 50 different questions to build up that whole multi-tenant user directory or user pool. And we've totally upended that experience, where we look at it from the lens of, hey, what kind of an app are you trying to build? Are you trying to do a traditional app, a single page app? Maybe I want to use a React framework for this. And from that, we can intelligently then make really almost all the decisions for you on how that multi-tenant directory will get built out. We ask you 1 or 2 additional questions about your endpoints and domain, what you want to set as required attributes. And within literally a few seconds, you're up and running with that. And then you get dropped right out of that experience into essentially a whole flow where if you were then going to use React Framework, what are your NPM installs? What are sort of the pre-configured code snippets you can then just copy and paste right into your application to have that authentication authorization experience. And then once you're actually in the new console, we've completely changed the entire navigation experience so that there's now a vertical navigation pane with a quick user pool switching, and it's so much easier to use overall. It's actually it's changed my life.
And I hope it will change the life of the developers that are listening to us too. Most of the developer I know, and my experience with Cognito is mostly to start from Amplify and not from the console. Is there any change there, or is it just two different ways to get to the same result?
Different ways to get to the same result. So yes, and if you're using Amplify, Cognito is the underlying authentication provider for that. And so oftentimes Amplifier developers are kind of going at it from, they have command line calls that essentially add authentication to their app. All that works exactly the same. But when they do actually want to go in and customize more for that user pool, then they'll actually see a lot of those differences in the console experience and how we've really streamlined the entire console navigation.
So you said you provide code samples as well for getting started easily. You mentioned a React framework. I know that Amplify supports many different frameworks and programming language, including native mobile with Swift. Is it something the console is following too, or you leverage Amplify for the mobile part?
So you actually have options. And indeed, as developers come in, before we had this this launch in November, Amplify was really the primary way of doing a lot of these customized experiences for Cognito, how your authentication pages would look and flow. And what we've launched with this, and that kind of gets into the next feature, is a whole new managed login experience. And depending on the type of apps you want to build, maybe you want to go build authentication directly into your app or directly in sort of like a Swift or Android app. And then maybe Amplify is the correct way for that. Likewise, maybe you want to use something that's more like WebKit or have more of a web-based app where it's happening much more through a browser and such, or you want to support single sign-on going between two different mobile apps for those things. And for that's where the Manage UI really shines.
Yeah, the Manage UI is the way to leverage a Cognito provided web interface for my login. So as a developer, I don't have to write my login screen, my sign up screen, my forgot password screen. These are customizable page that are provided by Cognito. What's new? That's the second part, and it's a very good transition. Thank you, Kevin, for that. So what's new with this managed login experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you touched upon it and summarized it well, Sebastian. So you can think of managed login as like a fully managed, fully hosted sign up and sign in experience available to customers that allows them to create more personalized sign up and sign in experiences more closely aligned with their application or company's branding. At the same time, allowing customers now to localize their sign up, sign in, password reset, MFA pages to the geography that they are currently based in. So we support over 10 plus managed languages as part of managed login. So really allowing customers if it's more personalized and localized branding feel for their authentication pages. You can think one of the components of managed login is this no code visual editor that really simplifies and allows you some multiple configuration options ranging from font, background, colors, alignment of text, different elements, different design elements of your login screens that is all customizable using managed login. And it really, if you think about the core benefit, it takes compared to say the previous version of hosted UI that Cognito had is it just completely removes the additional effort that developers had to undertake to design and maintain some custom implementation such as say passwordless authentication. Now it supports managed login supports this all out of the box, and we'll touch upon that as well. I know this is another topic that we wanted to talk about, but these are some of the benefits here.
But the managed login is not new. It exists since I know Cognito, but before I can only change a couple of attributes in the CSS. That's mostly it. And now I have almost full control on the page design. That's the new thing here.
Absolutely, Sebastian. That's correct.
So the benefit for customer is going much faster to produce a page which is visually aligned with the rest of their branding. They can import their logo, their style sheets.
Yeah. So interestingly, we kind of went out to the market and found that for a lot of developers, creating these customized login pages and registration pages was actually really painful overall. If you think about it, this is the attack surface area of your site. This is what attackers are really, they're going to launch bot attacks against, credential stuffing attacks, all sorts of things. So this part of your site needs to be super secure. Likewise, you need to match the look and feel and all those components of the rest of your site. And so for a lot of times, these can be at odds with a single developer who's, maybe focused on security while someone else is focused on the look and feel.
The design.
And so we wanted to have a really nice no-code visual editor for this setup so that, within a couple of clicks, literally, you can create a fully customized site with this visual editor.
And customers that are happy with the basic, they can just go with the basics as well. I guess we provide default value for colors, for button size, for everything. So people like me that do a lot of demo, we can continue to have a web page with no effort at all.
Absolutely, you have the smart defaults already, like in the basic UI page that manage login essentially creates. But when you go into the UI editor as well, you can just control the entire look and feel of your site. In fact, right after the launch, Kevin and I went on AWS and on air as well, and Kevin had this amazing demo about wild pets. Highly encourage everyone to check it out as well, because you'll just see all the different configuration elements that you can touch upon: transparency, background color, font, image, all of these options are now available to the developers to customize the look and feel.
I really like it's the localization that you mentioned in 10 different languages out of the box, and customer can add their own if the language is not managed by us. And simple things that are not so obvious to develop. It's the dark mode, light mode that customer can choose from now.
Okay.
It was quite hard to add that in the previous version of the managed login. So first thing we changed is the getting started experience. The first thing you see in the console, and the way we collect configuration to propose a configuration by default based on your need, with just a few questions to answer. The second thing is this new managed login experience. So it's a web experience for web application. I have to repeat that it's not the only login experience. Amplify is providing Android and Swift native screens as well, if you want to include native authentication inside your mobile app. And then API, Cognito has an API as well. So for developers that want, there is still the possibility to build your own GUI from scratch. It's probably not the recommended way. I see your faces saying no. But it's there. We have an API.
Indeed, there's an identity SDK which can actually is very similar to the Amplify SDK, but exists outside of the whole Amplify ecosystem. But then there's the backend AWS SDK, which we would typically have with all AWS services, and you have access to all the authentication functions. You can build out a fully functional application like that. But yeah, for most customers, I would say you're probably not going down that route.
Third new capability that we announced around reInvent last year was the passwordless login. So what is passwordless login? What are these new capabilities that we unlock for customers?
So passwordless. This has been so highly requested by our customers in the last couple of years. And it's something that really we first started hearing passwordless just a couple of years ago. And this part of the market has absolutely exploded. And it's coincided, understandably, with a lot of these credential stuffing attacks. And, if we found anything, it's that humans are not great at creating secure passwords. We're not really good at remembering, entirely random strings of numbers and special characters and letters and such. And as a result, we tend to either create passwords that are based on real words, and maybe we're trying to be tricky and substituting, an A with an add or a for or something.
Oh my God.
But computers are great at picking this stuff up too. And then if you do have a very secure password, chances are you're reusing it. And this stuff, these passwords then get hacked by different sites and then put onto the dark web. And we actually have mechanisms to help against these credential stuffing or bot-based password attacks. But more and more, we're seeing customers wanting to sort of get out of the entire password business and just move to passwordless.
What are the options to avoid passwords? What are the technical options that we have?
So we launched with 3 different options, and that is getting a one-time password via email, via SMS, and with WebAuthn passkeys.
So let's stop a minute and think about the user experience. I'm the end user, not the developer using Cognito. I'm the end user. I'm going to the application authentication page. I enter my email address and I say login. And then I receive, you said, a one-time password over SMS, email, or via link.
Absolutely. So as you go through our out of the box workflows, it starts with your email, and then we can figure out based on when the user starts that login journey. Maybe they have a confirmed email account, maybe they also have a confirmed SMS, and we decide based on their preferred authentication type. We would send them a one-time password based on that authentication flow, and indeed, then they get an email with a one-time password. Type that into the login console, and then they're into the site.
So it's not like a second factor authentication. It's really the code, which is the password. Hence the name passwordless. There is no more password.
Absolutely. And where we really see this type of stuff shine is we'll run into customer sites where, maybe you're going to some of your retail sites every couple of days, or checking your bank account every couple of days. And in that case, you're often having already a workflow with passwords. You're remembering those passwords. But what about a workflow where, maybe I want to buy shoes online? Well, I don't buy shoes every week, not every month. And, it's probably more like every 6 months or so. What's the chance that I actually remember that password? And so for sites like that, customers are already resetting their passwords all the time. So they have to go through this heavy friction flow of, trying to go into the password, trying all their common passwords, and they reset it. And so, hey, let's just cut out the middleman and go right towards, a more secure flow for those sites.
There are a couple of websites I already visit that use the concept of magic links. They send you a link. You click on the link in your mail, and then it does some kind of magic to establish the authentication. Is this something we support as well?
So that one's not supported through the managed login, but it is supported through Amplify and through custom integrations. So we do have ways of doing that.
And what about passkey? Because passkey can be used as a replacement as a password, or on top of a password as a second factor authentication. So do we support passkey, and how and for what?
Passkeys is supported as first factor authentication right now, Sebastian, as part of our passwordless flows. It's based on WebAuthn and FIDO standards, and basically uses various built-in authenticators that customers have, the end users have in their own devices to authenticate. Passkeys are a more phishing-resistant technology. Think of using, say, Apple's Touch ID or Face ID or Windows Hello on, say, PCs to log in, right? So that's essentially, say, how customers can log in using passkeys as first factors. Today, we support this out of the box as part of our passwordless flows, and depending upon customers use cases and say how they want to configure these passwordless flow, they can either configure email one-time password, SMS one-time password, or passkeys based login.
And this is something the Cognito administrator can decide once for all, or is it something that each individual user can choose if they have the authorization to do so?
So this the Cognito administrator or the customer that essentially configures at their application level, and then if suppose they configure options for say, hey, you can either choose email, SMS, or passkey, depending upon the end users and what their preference is. For example, if they have a verified say SMS or verified email, that they can choose what's their preferred route to login. And similarly, if they prefer passkeys based login, assuming it's all configured at the application level, end users can choose passkeys to log in.
From what I understand, passkey requires some collaboration with local hardware. You mentioned Face ID, Touch ID, or the likes, or at Amazon we use FIDO keys as well. again, you're the expert, so tell me if I'm wrong, but passkey, it's like a unique key pair which is generated for each website, and the public side is sent to the website, to Cognito in that case, and the private part of the key is stored in a secure device, protected by biometric, my Touch ID, my Face ID, or whatever. So that's the way it works. It's something that needs to be configure at the time the user register, or later in the process to add a passkey to an existing login. We do support all these type of flows.
Absolutely. So, WebAuthn passkeys are super exciting. This is, this just launched a couple years ago, and to see the industry, really run and support this stuff, it's kind of amazing to see how much this has changed in just the past couple of years. And it is, as you say, like it's a cryptographic based authenticator. So it is based on like your TPM chip in your phone or your computer, using things like Windows Hello or Touch ID. So it is really moving towards that much more frictionless authentication while being more secure and while also being the cheapest of the authenticators, right? So from one of our customers' perspectives, it's you have to spend money to send out SMSs. You have to spend money to send email one-time passwords. This is free and the most secure option. So it's really sort of leapfrogging a lot of these technologies, and it's giving you that most frictionless experience because people are more and more being trained to do these face unlock, Touch ID, or touch unlock type workflows. And it can, working on Windows as well, and in different flows, it can support things like YubiKeys. So there are a lot of different ways you can actually support this.
As a consumer, I love when I see a pop-up saying, hey, there is a passkey from 1Password, for example, and I just have to apply my finger or my face on my phone, and I don't have finally to remember or to type a password. That's great. So we talk about three different things: the new getting started experience, the managed logging, so the web-hosted web interface, passwordless login through email, passkey, SMS. One of the advantage of this passwordless login, it's probably easier as well to migrate or to back up a database of user profiles. That's a common maybe request is too strong of a word, but it's a discussion I often have with Cognito customers saying, how can I back up my database of user profile? And when the passwords are there, it's very hard to do securely. So now that we have no more passwords, do we open the door to something easier to back up in the future?
That's a great point. And it's indeed, it's even changing the game, not just for things like backup or recovery to another region, but even migrations, user migrations coming in, right? Because every SIAM vendor, they're all having different ways of hashing out passwords, locking things down, preventing those passwords from being exported. And no one wants to have a forced password reset where you're actually telling your customers, hey, we want you to come up with a new password for this and go through this workflow. It creates a lot of friction, and it creates gets users to abandon platforms when you start to do that. But if you're already trained that this is, you're using one-time passwords, and then all you need to migrate is an email address or like a verified phone number, then it becomes really trivial to then migrate them over to other types of vendors and sites.
One of the few white hairs I have, it's because of identity system migration and backup projects that I did in 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Migrating identities in a way that it's seamless for customer. It's super hard to do. But that's another story. The last thing I wanted to talk with you is the new pricing structure. Historically, Cognito had quite generous 3-tier offering with 50,000 monthly active users, if I remember well, out of my head the previous number. We decided to change the pricing structure a bit. Can we explain easily what's the pricing structure for the new Cognito?
Absolutely. I'll attempt to do that and make it as simple for listeners to understand this better. But before I do that, Sebastian, I wanted to just share some more background about our thinking around say how did we think about product packaging as well as say pricing for our customers. Like one of the central tenets for us, for our customers, is to make sure that we like offer our capabilities at the most attractive price to value proposition for customers. Like when they're choosing, like say ASIM, like a SIAM solution or any capabilities that they want. But beyond just pricing decision, like taking pricing decision in isolation and treating this as a as like entire Cognito capabilities as just like one giant offering, it was important for us to like say design product packages which met bespoke needs or like specific set of problems for target customer use cases and scenarios. You can think of like each product package as offering the right tool for the right customer segment. Earlier, like previously, Cognito had like Cognito user pools, just like had Cognito user pools, like the most basic user management product, user authentication product, and then you had advanced security features to essentially detect and protect against malicious threat vectors. What we realized was there was a need for like say rethinking our product packaging and like say segment it out into three broad categories. So what we did, I'm going to first talk about that and then like help our listeners understand better about pricing for each. So what we did was we introduced three tiers called Lite, Essentials, and Plus.
Okay.
You can think of Lite as essentially all the basic user registration, authentication, and management capabilities, including like having integration with social identity providers or SAML or OIDC provider integration, and traditional password-based authentication, everything that existed in Cognito prior to this release, like in the basic offering, targeted towards value-oriented use cases for like customers like that have much more like say reduced requirements for like, oh, we want traditional password-based authentication. This tier is targeted towards those customers. For this specific scenario, like the pricing structure remains exactly the same as
per
was
monthly
the case
active user.
per monthly active user, the pricing dimension being that. And the only difference being that for new customers who log in, new customers that integrate with Cognito, the free tier is different from like say 50,000 monthly active users to 10,000 monthly active users.
Okay.
So that's one key difference. But apart from that, the pricing structure, etc., per monthly active user or MAU, as we like to call it, remains the same. The second tier is Essentials, and that is essentially our solution that offers the most comprehensive and flexible user authentication and access control features, allowing customers to implement secure, scalable, and customized sign-in experiences with not just traditional password-based authentication, but passwordless flows as well, which we announced on November 22nd, 2024, and also allowing customers to have much more out-of-the-box experience by having managed login support by default. So this is like the full comprehensive suite of features that Essentials has.
So these new capabilities that we talk about today are in this essential tier, which is like the new default, go-to by default tier of usage for Cognito.
Absolutely. Exactly, Sebastian. And the key thing to also note here is, and this is where I'm going to touch upon and just touch upon our previous advanced security features just for a bit. One of the feedback that we heard from our customers was like all these threat protection capabilities and detection capabilities are great, but it is very expensive for customers. It was a steep jump from the pricing structure previously, and a lot of our customers also noted that we had some other features like ability to customize access tokens for more fine-grained authorization, like packaged into our much more expensive tier. So now all of that is available. Now those capabilities like customizing access tokens for fine-grained authorization, more complex password policies like password history, reuse prevention, and even supporting email as a second factor authentication is now supported in this Essentials tier. So it's much more price attractive compared to what used to be the case for advanced security features. So that's essentially what Essentials is. It comes with a free tier of 10,000 monthly active users.
Just like the Lite tier.
Just like the light tier. And just to stress on this is a free tier. It's 10,000 monthly active users per month. So it is like every month, like you get these 10,000 monthly active users for free. And then
let me rephrase that. I have a small indie app, I can use Cognito. As long as I don't have more than 10,000 monthly active user, I'm not paying for Cognito.
That is correct.
It's
that
not
is
like
correct.
a 1 year term or something.
No.
Okay.
There is no time-bound trial period, or there's no usage-bound trial. Like it is a free tier. Like every month that you have you have this 10,000 mouse usage, which is free of cost. And every incremental monthly active user post that is charged
Then it's normal.
$0.015 exactly. But again, as we mentioned, a key central pricing tenet for us is attractive price to value proposition, and which we feel helps customers like get this solution at an attractive price point. And the last tier that is called the plus tier is geared towards use cases for customers with elevated security needs for their applications, like where they want to, like, say, detect and protect against threat from malicious actors or suspicious login attempts, etc. So this plus tier includes, by the way, Essentials includes everything that was in Lite and all the new features that I talked
it's on
about.
top.
Similarly, exactly. And similarly, Plus includes everything that was in Essentials and includes support for risk-based adaptive authentication. So, for example, if like our risk engine detects the most risky sign-in attempt, we send you risk scores like low, medium, high. And based on those risk scores, you can configure whether you want to step up and have a second factor authentication or block block users from signing in. That's like essentially what risk-based adaptive authentication is, and we use different signals to compute it, including things like impossible travel. Suppose, Sebastian, you are historically logging in from, say, where you are,
Paris
and then from Paris, and then 10 minutes later you suddenly sign in from Sydney. Like that's a risk, like something that's impossible to travel within such a short period of time. So that feeds into a risk engine.
Except with VPN, I was already caught by that with my VPN configuration. But yes, so that's for more for customer that might have some regulated workload, for example, that have some compliance requirement for user authentication. Is it a one-time switch? So I'm on the essential tier. Can I at any point upgrade to the plus tier, or for a period of time and then come back? Or is it a one-way decision?
No, it's not a one-way decision. And that's the beauty of this. Like, we want customers to, like, say, try out different tiers and choose what's best for them. And that was our thinking around product packaging. You have full flexibility to switch anytime between any of these tiers and come back, and you start seeing the appropriate pricing reflected.
With a 10K monthly active user free tier as well, or not in the plus tier?
Not in the plus tier, and that's one thing that I wanted to call out. Like, plus tier does not have a free tier. That being said, what's really attractive about plus tier is compared to, it's more equivalent to our advanced security features, which was there before, but now has passwordless authentication as well as managed login. This is available. Customers who were using advanced security features before, they can actually use plus, switch to plus, and essentially see up to 60% reduction in their monthly bill that they were spending. And this is essentially in direct response to customer feedback that, advanced security features are so expensive. So we wanted to make sure that when we launch and repackage some of these capabilities, we recalibrate and have the right price point available. So you have.
So for existing customers that were using the advanced feature, what you're saying is that the new plus tier brings a price reduction for them up to 60%, depending on the case. Did I understand correctly?
That is correct.
Okay, so I understand the tier now. So 3 tiers. The Lite, which is essentially the old version of Cognito with the former set of capabilities. The Essential, which is the new Cognito that we talk about with the new capabilities. And the Plus tier with some advanced security capabilities. And for the 2 first tier, the Lite and the Essential, there is a free tier of 10K monthly active user. Yep.
Absolutely. I think absolutely the summary is correct, Sebastian. And one other thing that I wanted to just share for our customers. So for the for until November 30th of this year, like that is essentially like say about 1 year since the time we announced this launch, any of our existing customers that who were essentially on the old light tier, if they want to like say try out the new capabilities that we announced, they can like switch to Essentials and still up until November 30th, 2025, pay the same price point that they were paying before.
So they can try, evaluate without any risk on their build. That's an excellent news. And that's until November 2025.
November 30th, 2025. And it's all for like existing customers like that had user pools before we announced the launch. So that's
before November 2024.
Yes.
I'd like to finish this discussion typically with a look at on the future. I know we are not pre-announcing new capabilities or roadmaps or things like that, but you are key actors and you work daily in that identity space. What are the trends or the theme that you're seeing emerge in front of us?
So from my perspective, what I see is really persistent customer asks and trends is there's a lot of interest in how we can raise the bar or make improvements in bot detection, attack detection, providing greater observability into these types of attacks and such. These are things that cost our customers real money, when they get attacked and through some of these things, and it can use up some of their quotas and whatnot. And so I think there's certainly a lot of interest overall from the market in what you can do to mitigate threats.
I think in addition to what Kevin called out, I think increasingly what we hear customers is user sign up friction or sign in friction is expensive for customer applications. We have consistently heard from a lot of our customers that there is a direct correlation around the business outcomes that they want to drive, depending upon how frictionful the experience is to sign up and log in. So what we consistently are hearing is increasing trend and movement towards more seamless user sign-in experiences, which is inherently more secure as well. So the more secular trend being movement towards direction for passwordless based login experiences, be it either passkey as a first factor or even email or SMS, being something that we are consistently hearing, given that the business outcome that customers drive by having more reduced friction for their end user signing up or signing in.
So simplify the user experience, also simplify the developer experience to integrate this type of service inside their application. So if you're developing a mobile application, a web application, and you need customer front-end sign up, signing, password reset, passwordless authentication, give a try to Cognito, the new Cognito, and its pricing tier. Give us your feedback, leave us your feedback on social networks. Give it a try. In my opinion, it's the easiest way to get started with user identity. It's super, super easy to get started. And because it's entirely managed on the back end, it scales from a few users for your proof of concept to thousands, hundreds of thousands of users. If your app is successful, you don't have to rethink about your design for user authentication. Thank you, Rahul Sharma, your product manager, principal product manager in the Cognito team, and Kevin Shanley, you're you're the worldwide tech leader. I was looking for my notes in the identity space. Thank you for your very clear explanation. Thank you for having listened to this episode until the end. And now go build.